Mrs. Doubtfire, D.B. Cooper, and Jack Ruby are all on this day. Welcome back to On This Day. Today's date is November 24th, 2022. It is the 228th day of the year. You got 37 days left until you got to make a New Year's resolution. It is the 47th Thursday in the 47th week and the 64th day of fall. You got 27 days left until winter. If today's your birthday, you're a Sagittarius. Today is D.B. Cooper Day. Yes, a hijacker gets his own day. Back in 1971, a mysterious man hijacks an airplane, steals a briefcase full of money, and parachutes away in a daring escape. The ticket purchased for the man was registered as Dan Cooper, which turned out to be an alias. And it didn't even stay Dan Cooper because of an error that a newspaper reporter made. In his transcription, he put DB by mistake, and it kind of stuck. The man behind this still unsolved plane hijacking took a short flight from Portland to Seattle at the cost of $20. But he left the plane with $200,000 in a briefcase by parachuting out of the back of the airplane. Incidentally, the amount of money would be worth about $1.4 million in today's money. In the middle of the flight, Cooper told a flight attendant that he had a bomb and demanded money along with 4 parachutes. He knew they had the money and he knew they had the parachutes, so these kind of became clues that a lot of people have run with, and it's an inside job and all kinds of different theories on this guy. But he jumped out of the airplane and they figure he landed somewhere around Ariel, Washington, which is not far from Portland. I don't know how slow this plane was going or how fast the process went where they took off. He must have just handed the flight attendant the note while they were on the runway, I imagine, because he got out pretty quick. Granted, back in 1971, the planes were a lot slower, but I'm on the other side of Portland right now, and I could probably drive to Ariel, Washington in about 50 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, somewhere around there. But, if you grew up in the United States and you were born sometime around the 1960s or 70s, I'm sure you've heard about D.B. Cooper more than once. This hijacking has captured the attention of America for decades and decades. It wasn't the biggest heist. Nobody got killed. Well, maybe D.B. Cooper, we don't know. But it's just a fascinating story. Anyway, the small little hamlet, I guess you could call it, of Ariel, Washington has made D.B. Cooper their claim to fame and now hosts D.B. Cooper Day each year on this date. If you want to read a good book about D.B. Cooper, there's a book called Unsolved Case Files, Escaped at 10,000 Feet, D.B. Cooper and the Missing Money. I'll leave a link for it below. All right, let's see what else November 24th has given us. 1832, South Carolina passes the Ordinance of Nullification, declaring that the tariffs of 1828 and 1832 were null and void in the state, beginning the nullification crisis. This was sort of an interesting thing. Basically, South Carolina decided that they weren't on board with some of the tariff situations that the United States had set up. Basically, let's say you have a factory that makes saddles. This is big in the 1800s. But since Europe also makes saddles, they could sell them in the United States for cheaper because they've been doing industry a lot longer and they know how to cut costs. So in order for the factories that make saddles to be able to compete, the United States places a tariff on all incoming saddles so that European saddles will be more expensive than American saddles, and hopefully American consumers will buy the American saddles instead of the European ones. Basically, the tariffs tend to just raise prices all across the board. Well, at the same time, a lot of the southern states were selling cotton to Europe, and they knew it was just a matter of time before the Europeans started putting tariffs on them. So they start saying, you know what, Europe, we're not going to do the tariffs, so if you want to drop off your goods here in South Carolina, you won't find any problems like tariffs. Well, the United States government, headed by Andrew Jackson, goes, hey, you can't do that. All the other southern states are now on board with this, and President Jackson has a problem. So he comes to South Carolina and says, I'll compromise. We'll lower the tariffs. Will that make everyone happy? South Carolina's like, no, state rights. They were led by John C. Calhoun, and his opinion was, if the federal government gets an inch, they're going to take a mile. So we're going to play hardball and not accept lower tariffs. President Jackson played harder ball and said, okay, here's the deal. If you do this, I'm going to send down the military and you're going to have a bigger problem than tariffs. South Carolina was like, okay, fine, we won't do it. We'll stick with the Union. at least for a while. 1835, Texas authorizes the creation of horse-mounted police called the Texas Rangers, which is now the Texas Ranger Division of the Texas Department of Public Safety. 1859, Charles Darwin publishes On the Origin of Species. 1863, the American Civil War, Battle of Lookout Mountain near Chattanooga, Tennessee. Union forces under Ulysses S. Grant capture Lookout Mountain and begin to break the Confederate siege of the city led by General Braxton Bragg. 1917, in Milwaukee, 9 members of the Milwaukee Police Department are killed by a bomb, the most deaths in a single event in U.S. police history until the September 11th attack of 2001. 1932, Washington, D.C., the FBI Scientific Crime Detection Laboratory, better known as the FBI Crime Lab, officially opens. 1941, World War II, the United States grants Lend-Lease to the Free French Forces. This was a program where we could give them equipment without getting involved in the military. So they were actually purchasing it from us or leasing it from us. Therefore, the United States wasn't giving them equipment to fight Germany. Thus, we weren't being drug into the war. As we all know, later on, we decide we're going to get drug into the war. 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin of President John F. Kennedy, is killed by Jack Ruby, a local man that owns a nightclub and has connections to the Chicago mob. Ruby is convicted, but dies in prison before his appeal. Movies released on November 24th, 1993, Mrs. Doubtfire. After his divorce, a father disguises himself as a female housekeeper to spend time with his kids. This was one of Robin Williams' greatest movies. He played Miss Doubtfire. It was an incredible movie. Robin Williams, Pierce Brosnan, Sally Fields, Martin Mull, Harvey Fierstein. Definitely one of Robin Williams' best movies. I can't believe Robin Williams died all the way back in 2014. Honestly, I feel like it was just a couple weeks back. You know who else was in this movie? Polly Holiday. You might not know who she was or is. She's still alive. She's 85 years old. But she played Flo on the television sitcom Alice, Kiss My Grits. Yeah, that was her. She was in this movie too. She continued to work long after Alice went off the air. Her last film was in 2010. She was in a movie called Fair Game with Naomi Watts and Sean Penn. That was actually a pretty good movie too. Born on November 24th, 1977, Colin Hanks, son of Tom Hanks. He's also an actor. He played Alec Whitman in the TV series Roswell. He was in Good Guys. He's also in a pretty good movie called Orange County. He was in King Kong, The House Bunny, and he was even in Band of Brothers. Died on November 24th, 1991, Freddie Mercury, flamboyant lead singer of the iconic rock band Queen. He was known for his incredible vocal range, and he wrote many of Queen's classic songs like Bohemian Rhapsody and We Are the Champions. On the evening of November 24th, 1991, about 24 hours after issuing a statement, Mercury died at the age of 45 at his home in Kensington. The cause of death, bronchial pneumonia, resulting from AIDS. It was a complication of AIDS. So sad. Besides Rock Hudson and maybe Liberace, he was like one of the biggest names to die from AIDS. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. If you're watching this today and not a couple years down the road, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Be nice to each other.